Have you ever stopped and wondered what it's really like to grow up in the shadow of someone the whole world sees as a hero? We see the bright lights, the screaming fans, the legendary moments that define an era. But what we don't see, what's often hidden away, are the cracks that form when a person belongs more to the public than to their own family. Hulk Hogan is a name that almost everyone knows. He's the man who turned professional wrestling into a mainstream spectacle. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was an icon, the face of a generation, the reason kids everywhere tore off their shirts and flexed their muscles in front of the mirror. But for his daughter, Brooke Hogan, he was never just the legend. He was Dad. And her truth is not the same story fans think they know. The truth she's spoken about is one Hogan himself probably never wanted the world to hear. Because once it's out there, once you hear her words, the image of Hulk Hogan changes forever. Suddenly, he's not just the unstoppable force who defeated giants in the ring. He becomes a man whose greatest battles were fought at home, where fame and family collided in ways that left scars. Think about that for a moment. Have you ever admired someone so much, put them on such a high pedestal, that you almost forgot they were human? And then, one day, something shatters that image. You realize they're flawed, fragile, and maybe not the person you thought they were. That's the experience Brooke Hogan had to live. Let's go back to the world Hogan created. The 80s and 90s were the peak of wrestling as a cultural phenomenon. Hulk Hogan stood in the center of it all. With his bandana, his handlebar mustache, and his booming voice, he looked and sounded like the embodiment of strength. He told fans to believe in themselves, to fight for what's right, to say their prayers and eat their vitamins. People didn't just cheer him. They worshipped him. For kids, he was a superhero who just happened to be real. But what was happening behind the curtain was something very different. Brooke later revealed that life at home wasn't filled with the same joy and applause that defined her father's career. Fame didn't just follow Hogan into the arena, it followed him everywhere. Their family lived inside a fishbowl. Every move, every mistake, every decision was magnified under the glare of cameras and public opinion. For Brooke, that meant growing up without the same kind of privacy most of us take for granted. Imagine being a teenager and having your father cheered by millions, yet wishing he was just a regular dad who sat with you at the dinner table and asked how your day went. That's the reality she knew. It's easy to forget that when one member of a family becomes larger than life, everyone else gets pulled into that world whether they want it or not. And that's where the burden of the Hogan name comes in. Brooke explained how suffocating it could be to live under the weight of her father's legacy. Every step she took, every dream she tried to chase, was compared to her dad's accomplishments. When she wanted to sing, people didn't just hear her voice. They judged her as Hulk Hogan's daughter. When she appeared on television, audiences didn't see her as an individual, but as an extension of him. Imagine trying to build your own identity when every door you walk through is stamped with someone else's name. That's the kind of shadow Brooke had to live in. She once described how it felt like she could never just be Brooke. No matter how much effort she put in, no matter what she achieved, the conversation always circled back to her dad. And that wasn't just frustrating. It was suffocating. Think about how important it is for any young adult to carve out their own path. Now imagine how hard that becomes when the world constantly measures you against a legend. But the most powerful part of her truth wasn't about fame or even the comparisons. It was about the emotional struggles that fame brought into their family. Brooke revealed that the weight of scandals, controversies, and financial troubles wasn't something the public fully understood. These weren't just headlines. They were real problems that the family lived through day after day. She admitted that there were times when she just wanted her dad to be normal, to live a quiet life, to not always be Hulk Hogan, but simply to be Dad. That's the piece of truth that Hogan probably never wanted fans to hear. Because it breaks the illusion. It reminds us that behind the roar of the crowd, there's a family that sometimes felt the cracks, that sometimes wished for something different. Experts often talk about the unique challenges celebrity children face. It's easy to think that they're lucky, they have money, attention, access to things most people could only dream of. But what you don't see is the invisible weight they carry. The constant scrutiny. The pressure to live up to expectations they never asked for. The way their mistakes become public entertainment. And most of all, the feeling that the world owns a part of their parent that should only belong to them. Brooke's story highlights all of this. By speaking openly, she did what most celebrity kids don't dare to do. She peeled back the curtain and showed us what it's really like to grow up with a parent the world idolizes. And here's the most heartbreaking part. Brooke admitted that the fame itself wasn't the hardest part. The real pain came from the distance it created between her and her father. She described moments when it felt like he was always Hulk Hogan first and Dad second. Think about how painful that must be. To know that your father belongs more to strangers than to you. To feel like your family has to share him with the world. And deep down, to just want those small, ordinary moments of closeness that every child craves. Imagine being in her shoes. You're sitting at home, but your father is on the road, performing in front of thousands, being celebrated as a hero. Fans are chanting his name, and yet you're wishing he was there with you, just being your dad. That's a loneliness that fame can't fix. That's the kind of truth Brooke's words reveal. So here's a question worth thinking about. Which hurts more? Is it harder to find out that your parent isn't the person the world believes they are, or is it harder to spend your life living in their shadow, never fully seen for who you are? Brooke's experience forces us to sit with that question. Hulk Hogan built one of the most powerful legacies in wrestling history. He was the hero kids grew up watching, the man who inspired millions. But Brooke's words remind us of something important: even legends are human. Even heroes have flaws. And sometimes, the people who inspire the world can leave their own families feeling unseen. That's the hidden side of fame we don't often talk about. It's easy to look at celebrities and assume they have it all: money, success, adoration. But behind the headlines, there are children who feel the pressure of living under a spotlight they never chose. For them, having it all can actually mean missing the most important thing of all: closeness, family, presence. And maybe that's the truth Hulk Hogan never wanted the world to hear. Because for a man who built his image on being larger than life, there's something humbling about knowing that his greatest struggles weren't fought in the ring. They were fought at home, in the quiet moments where his daughter longed for something the cameras could never capture. So let me ask you this. Do you think children of celebrities have it easier because of the wealth and opportunity, or harder because of the pressure and the loss of privacy? It's a complicated question. And it's one that makes us rethink what fame really costs. At the end of the day, Hulk Hogan will always be remembered as one of wrestling's biggest stars. But Brooke's truth gives us a reminder that legends aren't perfect. They're people. And no matter how high the fame, no matter how big the spotlight, the relationships at home are what truly matter. And that's a story worth listening to. Because sometimes, the truth is bigger than the legend.